Ah, good morning, good evening. Namamita
Good
Butsu.
evening. I love the Bodhi tree there in the
Yeah.
background.
Thank you. Excellent. Yeah, thank you. I hope you're having a nice Bodhi season yourself. I trust.
Yeah. Um, Merry Christmas to you, and I hope you're enjoying the holiday with your family. And
Indeed.
also, Happy New Year,
Yes, indeed.
or shortly,
Not
be Happy
wrong. Yeah, yeah, exactly. At least the first one, and Chinese New Year, and
New Year.
anyway. So yeah,
Yeah, there's many,
good
many,
to
many, many New
good to see you. Good to see you. I'm drinking one of my gifts,
Yeah.
one of my little stocking stuffer gifts. Some
Oh, Arizona tea.
Arizona green tea. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
pomegranate flavor. So yeah,
Nice.
they are not a
The
sponsor.
good
Let me just
stuff.
say that they're not a sponsor. I'm just drinking that. I'm not endorsing them. I'm not advertising for them. I'm just drinking this now because it was a gift for the season from my wife. So anyway, right. So yes, you wanted to
Start
discuss
with some
the
Nimbutsu.
yes, we can start with yeah, definitely. Please do.
Okay. Namu Amida Butsu.
So,
Namu
no,
Amida
no, maybe
Butsu.
it's
Namu
no,
Amida
maybe
Butsu.
it's
Namanda.
no,
Namanda.
no, no, no.
So I think, first of all, it's been a while. Is there anything, any topic of import that you would like to
Um, well, I
discuss?
did
Or
another episode of Hitting the Wall, a couple episodes of Hitting the Wall with Johan for that
mm.
along that lines, and that seemed to be very helpful. So I don't feel this pressing a need today
Oh,
to
good. Good.
cover that. There's some other things that are sort of new developments in my path that I'd like to discuss, but I think it will
Sure.
probably fold nicely with the topic you have in mind for tonight. So,
Oh,
uh,
perfect.
you wanted to discuss the Vimalakirti Sutra, yeah? Um,
Yeah, the
I
Yuimangyo.
I've got I have the BDK PDF booted up here if you want
Mm,
to use
yeah.
that.
Perfect.
I can't do a search to bring it to the page that you had sent me. Do you know what I mean? The section of the, you know what
Oh, well,
that?
so that one is actually in um, the book Buddha Dharma,
Yeah, yeah, I saw that
Way
that
to
was
Enlightenment,
the title.
which
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
extensive compilation of uh, sutras, both Mahayana and from the Nikaya suttas as well. Basically, all schools of Buddhism, whether
Mm.
northern or southern, Mahayana, Hinayana, whatever yana, it's all it's all here
Oh,
in
here.
this book. It's well, one person
Excellent.
says it's oh
Pan Buddhist, Maha Pan Buddhist perspective.
yes, yeah. So it's let me see if I can find that passage real quick, because but also we could just use. Oh, by
The
the way, the
BDK.
Vimalakirti Sutra is one
Hmm.
of the three sutras that Prince Shotoku, according to tradition, wrote commentary on. So there's a
Oh,
an
wow, cool.
ancient commentary
Tie-in, yeah.
called the it's called the hold on the Sangyo Gisho, which means annotated commentary on the three sutras. And the three sutras in this case are the Hokkei, the Sho Mangyo, and the Yui Magyo, which is the Lotus Sutra, of
Yeah, I was
course,
going to say the Hoka
the
Kyo is the Lotus Sutra. I recognize that. Yeah.
yeah, the Srimala Devi Simhanada Sutra, the
Mhm.
Sutra of Queen Srimala,
Yeah.
and then the Vimalakirti Sutra. So that's an interesting fact. Um, and modern scholarship isn't sure that it's a single work of Prince Shotoku, but there's no consensus on that. But in any case, it's an ancient commentary on these three sutras. So that just shows these three sutras were held in high regard um, by Japanese Buddhists from the earliest time of Buddhism's coming to Japan from China. Um, and I think you can see the influence of these in almost all schools of Japanese Buddhism. Um, but particularly, um, I really like the Sutra of Queen Shamala. It's a great one that I think anybody should read. Um, it has some really good stuff in it. And then the Vimalakirti Sutra, of course, is very famous because it's a sutra that is actually taught by a lay person, not the Buddha, and not one of the Buddha's disciples, but a lay person who is an accomplished Bodhisattva, who is Vimalakirti. So, just a little interesting note on
Yeah.
the sutra. But perhaps while I'm looking, maybe you would like to introduce the question or the topic that ties into
Well, no, well, I
this.
no, I don't really need to feel I need to do that. I think if we
Okay.
kind of go into the things you were saying about pointing out um, the things that kind of would be good for discussion in a Shin Buddhist context. I think it might,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So I
factor
think
in.
I found um, here it is. Okay. Let's see. So there's of course many discussions in this sutra about between Vimalakirti and various bodhisattvas and so on. Um, so let's see. There's a famous.
I've got the table of contents here, if that would be kind of, no, probably not. Not going to be helpful for the sections now. Anyway, so
Um,
say that again.
so there's this famous part where Shariputra, who is the sort of the elder, um, the senior arhat in Shakyamuni's among the Shravakas, right, the followers of Shakyamuni, the historical Buddha. Um, he struggles to make sense at many points of Vimalakirti's discourse, despite the Buddha's approval of it. And at one point, I think this is really interesting because we talk a lot about gender and so on these days. But basically, there's a heavenly maiden um, is she appears and she scatters flowers, which heavenly beings,
Yeah.
heavenly
Yeah.
devas were believed to do in the Indian thought. So it says, just then a heavenly maiden appeared and scattered heavenly flowers over the people. All the flowers that fell on the bodhisattvas fell off, but those that fell on the disciples clung to their bodies and did not come off. The disciples tried to brush them off, but to no avail. The heavenly maiden asked Shariputra, "Why are you trying to brush the flowers off?" Shariputra said, "Flowers are not becoming to mendicants, right? We're monks.
Yeah.
We don't do flowers." Basically, um, the heavenly maiden said, "Why should flowers be unbecoming to monks? The flowers do not have any discriminating thoughts. Discriminating thoughts are in you, venerable one," speaking to Shariputra. "It is not becoming for one who left home in order to practice the Buddha's path to have a discriminating mind. When there is no discrimination, things will be in accordance with the Dharma or naturalness." Oh, that's interesting. So, uh, naturalness, right? The Dharma,
Yeah.
uh, being free of discrimination or discriminatory thinking, right? That those flowers do not cling to the Bodhisattvas is because they have freed themselves from all discriminatory thoughts. And then she continues to talk about this. And then this just, this sutra is a lot of fun to read because the conversations and the back and forth between the various
Yeah.
characters um, are really interesting, and especially when you consider, Shariputra was the most wise, considered to be the most wise of the Buddha's disciples, right?
Yeah.
Original disciples. But here he's being schooled by this, uh, heavenly maiden who isn't even a disciple, right? It's like, so anyway, so it goes on, and then Shariputra asks, um, and she's talking about, uh, okay, then Shariputra asked, heavenly maiden, there is more than one way to seek the way. What way did you follow? So now he's asking her, well, how did you come to this understanding of the Dharma, which is actually a really important question, right?
Yeah.
You know, to ask someone, if they seem to, I think oftentimes people, will say, "Oh, I'm a Buddhist," or, I follow this, I believe that, but it's always a good idea to confirm, well, where do you get your understanding, right? Because there are sources that are not so not so reliable, let's just say. If someone says, well, I'm a anyway, you can imagine, fill in the blank, right? But anyway, so what I like here is Shariputra asks, heavenly maiden, there's more than one way to seek the way. Which way did you follow? The heavenly maiden said, I do not necessarily seek a fixed path. It is like entering a Kampaka forest. One smells only the fragrance of Kampaka flowers and does not smell other things. Once one enters this room, one need not wish to smell the fragrance of any saint other than the supreme fragrance of the Buddha. Indeed, the golden light is shining day and night in this room so that no sunlight or moonlight is needed. No impurities to plague us are found in this room. Instead, gods and bodhisattvas gather here and always teach the way that will benefit oneself as well as others. Beautiful heavenly music sounds endlessly the strains of the Dharma. Abundant Dharma treasures save the poor. Shakyamuni Buddha and Amitabha Buddha, as well as other Buddhas, appear here in response to the wishes of those here and teach the essence of the Dharma. Also in this room are seen the beautiful palaces of the gods and the pure, taintless Buddha countries. Venerable One, as this room is filled with supreme virtues, there is no one who raises discriminatory thoughts. So that's an interesting mention of Amida Buddha in there, right? But I just think that's a very beautiful description of, the Dharma, or
Yeah.
a place where the Dharma is enjoyed, you know.
And
Um,
expansive, kind of, sort of not limited, not, um, not excruciatingly defined and
Right. Yeah.
do you see what I mean?
Not,
Interpreted, not
not
over interpreted
and
or
yeah,
over defined or
analyzed to death, right?
yeah, exactly.
Um, yeah, and so then Vimalakirti, the Manjusri then asks, um, okay, let's see. Um, yeah. So Manjusri posed the question, what is the seed that enables one to become a Buddha? So basically, he's asked Vimalakirti, how does a Bodhisattva reach the Buddha's way? And Vimalakirti says, well, um, all of these ways. And then Manjusri posed the question, what is the seed that enables one to become a Buddha? To this query, Vimalakirti answered, all wrong views of other teachings and all defilements are the seeds of a Buddha. Those who believe that nirvana is independent of defilements cannot attain the Buddha's path. The lotus does not grow on high plains, but blooms in muddy water. Likewise, one generates the Buddha Dharma living in the mud of defilements. Moreover, seeds will not grow when planted in the sky. Planted in dirt and manure, they sprout forth vigorously. In the same way, those who completely immerse themselves in the uncreated nirvana cannot produce the Dharma. Rather, those who come forth with an ego as large as a mountain are the very ones who rouse the mind that aspires to the way and are able to produce the Dharma. That
Hello.
is to say, all
Hello.
defilements are seeds to attain Buddhahood. Unless one goes down deep to the bottom of the sea, one will not be able to obtain the priceless gems. Likewise, without going into the ocean of defilements, one cannot attain the gem of omniscience. So that's, I think, an interesting passage. Of course, it's famous for the analogy of the lotus um, growing in the mud, right?
Which is a
But
hugely iconic teaching feature
yeah,
just about every school and
yes,
common sort of knowledge or association with Buddhism, you know, is
hmm
the lotus flower, the symbolism and teaching of the
yeah.
lotus flower. Anyway,
So this, um, those who believe that nirvana is independent of defilements cannot attain the Buddhist path. So basically, he's describing, and this I think is why the sutra was so popular in so many places, not just China and Japan, but other countries as well. Uh, is he is he's basically proposing a path to enlightenment that's completely different from becoming a monk, right? And going off and secluding and avoiding contact with, the world and so on. This is rather a path of basically jumping in, jumping
yeah.
into the world with all its defilements. Um, you know, Earlier, Vimalakirti says, appearing as though violating the precepts, he is cautious not to commit even the slightest of evils in other things. Even though appearing to enter evil ways, he is living in harmony with the Buddha's wisdom. And I think, this is very much, and I think it's why historically even there were Shin Buddhists who um, uh, did lectures and stuff on the sutra, is because when I think of this, I think of Shinron, and I think
Yeah.
of the the great teachers and the masters, our founding master and others who, if you think about it, they violated the precepts, right? Shenron married, you're not supposed to do that. He ate meat, you're not
Yep.
supposed to do that.
Yep.
He associated with the regular, really anybody who
Yeah.
wanted to
Hunters
hear,
to prostitutes
yeah,
to
the truth
uh,
of Nimbutsu.
everyday people, farmers, peasants.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but he didn't live a monastic life. He didn't, he wasn't an ascetic, right? In fact, he referred to himself as, stubble-headed Shinron, uh, because, or the stubble-headed fool, because although he had shaved his head as a monk, his hair grew out, stubble, right? Um, and that's why he said, "I'm neither a monk nor a layperson.
Person.
I'm just who I am." But he found the freedom and the ability to be who he was completely within Amida's light and in Amida's embrace. Everything else just doesn't matter,
Yeah.
ultimately. And so, this is very much, I think, the spirit of Shin Buddhism is that, we also are not monks, right? We're not living an ascetic life, or I know I am not. And most others
Neither am I.
are not as well. I mean, we just are living uh, in what it's not that we're just sort of holding our noses through nirvana, or through samsara. It's that um, we're immersed in it, but at the same time, it's like the lotus growing in the mud of defilements, right? And Shinron goes even farther, I think. It says that, bonno, defilements, the kleshas, are actually um, like ice is to water. The more ice, the more water. You know, the uh, the bonno
That,
is actually transformed into
yeah.
enlightenment, and
It's
that
that
comes
flip. It's
about
the flip.
solely through
The
Amida's
Shinron
work.
flip. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's
It's
basically what
the
I wanted to.
Nirvana. Nirvana is none other than samsara. Samsara is none other than Nirvana.
Right, which is also in Shoshinge, right?
So yeah, I think it's this the leaping in, immersing the Dharma that it leaps in and immerses in samsaric existence. I think Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, Jodo Shinshu teaching is uniquely kind of qualified to speak to that. That you're just giving, examples of that. I don't think it's the only one. I think to some degree, probably Nichiren
Well,
Buddhism
the reality
similar.
is that all Buddhists, especially lay Buddhists, I
Yeah.
think, ultimately, some of the Buddhism's earliest followers and sponsors were, from the merchant class, right? And they were ultimately lay people, right? Of course, the support of the monks comes from the lay sangha, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, I sort of take issue with this idea, like you see in the book by um, Dobbins, I think his name is, where who tries to make sense of Shin Buddhism's popularity and that it was a lay Buddhism. But I don't think that's the case because there were other lay Buddhisms. All of the Kamakura sects all were appealing to lay people. I mean,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
that's what I started to mention was, like Nichiren Buddhism and
right?
and I was going to say
Yeah,
other sort of schools that arose during that same period, the Kamakura
exactly.
era
Yeah,
would
yeah,
have been, and probably as uniquely qualified to speak to that kind of Dharma,
yeah, yeah.
as anyway.
But I think what is interesting, what is unique about Shin Buddhism is um, the uh, and we have to be careful here because Shinran never says that blind passions are equal to nirvana,
Yeah.
because that's actually a phrase and that's an idea or a teaching that was
Hmm.
current. Bon no soku uh, bodai, I think maybe. well, anyway,
Okay.
in English,
Hmm.
uh, the kleshas are the same as nirvana. Shinran never says that. Rather, he says that our kleshas, our bono, is transformed into the Buddha's the highest virtues. So there's a dynamic process of transformation. It's
Yeah.
not just that I can say, oh, well, you know, I'm good because my kleshas are nirvana, and boy, do I have a lot of those. you know, I
Yeah.
that's a static. That doesn't get me anywhere, right? That's
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
me saying, oh, there's no
Well,
transformation. There's no turning
yeah.
of the heart mind there, and so that's why
Well, it's
Shinran
similar to
emphasizes.
the kind of just bringing it similar to the whole
Yeah.
idea of Buddha nature. That people say, well,
Yes.
I'm already there. I have everything has Buddha nature, so I'm not going to
Right.
worry. Don't worry about it. Uh,
Hongaku,
yeah,
or original
or
enlightenment.
just
That was,
somehow just
yeah.
because I know I say that I will somehow get there, or
Right.
if I
Well, that
wish
was
hard
what,
enough.
if you think about it, the Tendai school at the time in Shinran's day, very much taught, was based on the idea of original enlightenment, you know, that we're, all beings are already originally and eternally enlightened. It's just a question of realizing that through practice. And if you think about it, all of the Kamakura schools were all sort of, in their different ways, responding to that sort of static and
Yep.
static idea, which had become a very petrified and stifling, you know, notion of what enlightenment was. Because if you think about it, Shinron and Honen, of course, taught the Nimbutsu, really emphasized the difference, really emphasized that Bombu, unenlightened beings, are not Buddha. and therefore, we need the primal vow. We need the
Yep.
Nimbutsu. We
Exactly.
need Amida's virtue. We need salvation. People don't like that word, but they use it all the time in Japan. Sukui, Amida no Sukui. Sukui means to save. We need to be saved by this encounter with Amida's power and Amida's vow. Um, we can't do that if we think we're already good,
Yeah. What need would we have for?
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why
I
Zindo,
have Buddha nature.
says,
You know, what's the problem?
yeah,
Problem.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sinking, but it's all good. I'm okay. That's why Zendo's, the two aspects of deep faith. One of them is I am a being who transmigrates through samsaric existence without any cause or condition that would lead to my liberation from it. You know,
Yeah.
it's not that I'm okay because my bono are the same as nirvana, right?
Yeah.
And then the other side is that Amida's vow power takes me on board, and by boarding that vow, I am able to sail across the sea of birth and death and attain nirvana. So, um, again, Yuima, Vimalakirti Sutra is really interesting to read, and it's
Mm.
definitely recommended reading for anybody. But at the same time, it's also still the path of sages, right?
Yeah.
Even when the heavenly maiden says, um, talks
Well, who's
about,
she addressing?
talks about,
Like, who's she talking
it's
to?
still a path of self power and ultimately a bodhisattva path, which we're not on a bodhisattva path, although I've definitely met more bodhisattvas on this path than on any other path.
Exactly. Exactly. And
Anyway,
well, with
okay, I think talked long
the implications of the
enough.
teaching we've talked about with the merit transference for going forth and the merit transference for
Yeah,
return, when the return part's
right.
happening is you can't really pinpoint that. Um,
Uh-huh.
so yeah, with that in mind, even more so what you were saying
Yeah.
there. Um, there's one of my I don't know if I've mentioned this before in one of our discussions. One of the people I'm friends with on Facebook
Hmm.
um, calls himself and as a Pure Land Buddhist calls himself Bodhisattva and then the name. And
Okay.
first I was like, okay, that's a bit grandiose. But then, and I've been friends with this person for quite a while.
Hmm.
And then when we had that discussion, and that you could that original this was months ago. We had that discussion with Johan about this very thing, the merit transfer going forth in
Hmm.
return, and me
Yeah.
struggling with wait, oh yeah, that is what that's saying. That when pinpoint you can't really pinpoint when that return part
Yeah.
is
The trap here though is
right.
we never say that I am a bodhisattva,
No, no,
right?
but
And the
when
reason
yeah, I
is
get
the
that, but I'm just saying
contradiction.
yeah, but when but after I heard that, I was like, well,
Yeah.
maybe that's what he has in mind. Maybe not, but do you know what I
Well,
mean?
okay,
Yeah.
if he knows his past lives and knows
Yeah.
that he's,
True,
you
true,
know,
true,
then
true.
I guess he has
Oh,
a right to
so,
say that. But
yeah,
I honestly, I'm always cautious when people use
yeah,
grandiose terms and
yeah,
titles to refer to
yeah.
themselves.
Agreed. Same.
And especially with the Bodhisattva thing, is this, um,
I just was just saying, I
uh,
wonder if maybe that's what he had in mind. That's all. I
yeah,
don't know for sure, but that's,
it might be that that's his understanding. But
yeah.
the sentence "I am a bodhisattva" is actually a contradiction because a bodhisattva has no thought of I.
Yeah. Or identity.
um,
Or, yeah.
and so there's the idea that I am a bodhisattva. I've attained this.
Yeah.
Uh, Someone who's a real bodhisattva knows that there's nothing to attain,
Or, well,
so they're
maybe
not
it's,
going to go
yeah.
around,
Yeah. I mean,
saying they're a
it's somebody on
bodhisattva.
Facebook, okay? It's a friend,
Oh yeah, no, I know.
a friend, quote
Facebook is
unquote, on
full of
Facebook,
wannabe
so
wannabe bodhisattvas.
and
I know that for
yeah, or it could be a reference to the Bodhisattva vows. Maybe he takes that very
or maybe in
seriously,
his,
whatever. But
what he thinks of,
anyway,
thinks everyone should identify
it's
as a
good,
bodhisattva.
it's good you pointed that out. I'm just saying that is what it made, I
Right.
later made me think of. Anyways, coming back to the earth for us,
Yeah.
Bombu.
The real
Um,
world.
there was something that you said that now there was a couple of things that the sort of grounding in sort of Jodo Shinshu uh
Hmm.
in this kind of the Dharma immersed that in some
Yeah.
existence and I now can't the other thing it made me think of maybe it'll come back. We're at the
Sure.
about 6 minute mark here.
Uh-huh.
So one of the things that came to mind, speaking of the Kamakura, the very
Yeah.
earthly, down to earth Kamakura Buddhisms, yeah, schools of
Yeah.
Buddhism. One of the things I
Practical.
thought of with this, kind of the Dharma practice, the Dharma practitioner, immersed or admired, like the lotus flower in and then
Yeah.
rising above it in is the Bodhisattvas of the earth from the Lotus
Mm.
Sutra. Well,
Mm.
the very thing, the Lotus Sutra, of course, but it's those beings that um, were that Shakyamuni, the eternal Buddha, taught since however beginningless past
Hmm.
um, were remained in that state, until
Yeah.
and where our two remain in that earthly beneath the earth actually
Right.
state to so that they can truly teach all at the appointed time or eternal time or time starts in the Lotus Sutra. Time starts to get a bit indefinite as to what it's kind of talking about, but they're rising from the earth, like a lotus flower. And they were mired for since beginning its lifetime so that they could be the bodhisattvas of the earth. Do you see what I mean? And it made me kind of think of that
Hmm.
as well when we were going through
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, I think too, don't forget, the goal of Shin Buddhism, of Pure Land Buddhism, uh, true Pure Land Buddhism, is um, to become a bodhisattva, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and
exactly.
someone who becomes a bodhisattva, as I think it's Donron, or maybe it's Vasubandhu says, he describes the working of the bodhisattva in the Pure Land as sporting or playing in the forest of birth and death,
Yeah.
because it's like um, it's like a lion or a tiger sporting and playing in the jungle. Um, the bodhisattva dives into samsara and uses all these skillful means, right? And forms and language and so on to express what is ultimately inexpressible and can only be experienced.
Yeah.
And so
Like
that's a very important image. We should talk about
like the
realization.
bodhisattvas, like the drama unfolding in the Contemplation Sutra of our three
Yeah,
Pure
yeah,
sutras.
exactly. Yeah,
The drama there, the three, the three people in that, you know,
yep,
as Shinran refers to them as bodhisattvas, and that's something
yeah,
brings me back to that thought, when we had that discussion and it really hit me, the implications of the mirror transfers for the going forth and return, and then
yeah.
and Shinran mentioning those three, and then saying in the Kyoga Shinshu saying, you know, Amida Buddha's merit transference or light or what, can't remember exactly how it's worded,
Mhm.
transforms your past, present, and future karma into the highest good. Like it made me think, like initially, this is the first time
Yeah,
the time thing started getting really fuzzy, hugely fuzzy. When I first really read that in the Fokomoto sequence, of course, while I was
yeah,
reading through, and that finally hit me after having read the three sutras and then reading that in the Kyogyo Shinsho. I was like, it was wait. So were they bodhisattvas to begin with, or was it like a reverse engineering, kung fu by Amida Buddhist merit transference? You know what I mean?
uh-huh.
I was like, when did that happen? Where, when, do you
No.
see what I mean? And then we had that discussion with Yumi and Johan about when that return part and it just went,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, mind blown now,
Inconceivable.
inconceivable. Exactly,
Fukashi,
exactly.
Fukasho,
But
Fukasetsu, Fukashi.
anyway, it's a very good point about the bodhisattva. That's bodhisattva. That's what our the whole return is about. Us becoming bodhisattvas
Right.
in multiple
Yeah.
forms. It's jumping in. We're good. We're in it.
Yeah.
We started it, and we
Yeah.
jump back into it. That's
Yeah.
yeah,
And I also like, we have less than a minute, but
yeah, exactly.
you know, at the end of the day, a bodhisattva is also an ordinary person, but an ordinary person who has awakened to the truth of nirvana, right? So just something to think
I
about.
agree. Indeed.
All right.